Hello.
Hello iOS fans!
It's the Agents of Sigmar.
And in this video we're going to tell you 5 warbands that are brilliant for beginners.
And another 11 or so that might also be a good pick.
Another 11 or so, that's a good number.
Yeah.
So randomly pick 11.
Yeah.
Quite good. So in this video we are going to do what we said on the tin. We're going to tell you, if you've just got into the game, 5 warbands that are kind of easy to break into the game with, pick up and learn and work out the mechanics of the game. They're not necessarily the best and the strongest.
No.
But they are just nice and easy to play, and they won't fry your brain.
They fulfil 2 criteria that we think are really important for a new player, which is they're easy to play and they're easy to get. Because there's no point in saying, oh, I'll get this warband, they've been out of stock for 6 years, but if you can get a set, they're fantastic.
Yeah, no, none of that. So number 1 is in the brand new box. It's in Wintermoor, and they are the Skinnerkin. Yeah,
the ghouls. We picked them because they've got a good balance on stats, they've got some very nice cards, but they're also a fairly simple warband to play with. They've got a few little special rules, but there's nothing completely mind-breaking in there.
Inspiration is pretty much just by rolling crits.
Yeah.
It's a little bit twiddly, but other than that, it's just by rolling crits, which is nice. Can be frustrating, but it's at least nice and easy. Oh, I've rolled crits, I could probably inspire somebody.
Yeah, gather lots of tokens, and it gives you an introduction to all the different sort of mechanisms. The one to number 2 is an old warband that's now a new warband.
Yeah, once divisive, but now considerably less so.
It's Molog.
Molog and his mob. Now again, I don't think the new incarnation of Molog is particularly strong, but it is nice and easy to play. You've got one fighter who does most of your heavy lifting, and you're just making attacks with them all the time, and then you get to learn about making supports with the other fighters and trying to utilise them the best you can. The objective suite and power card suite is pretty good on the new deck. So it is in the Rivals of the Mirrored City box, which did go out of stock for a little while, but is now, I think, back in stock, reprinted, so you should be able to get it fairly easily, I think. Number 3 is also in that same box.
Yep, it's Scritch's Swarm.
So I don't really know anything about these because I'm contractually not allowed to play them.
Yeah, Scritch's Swarm, they can be a little bit delicate, but I think once you get the hang of that whole just being careful on where you commit your leader, which is pretty much the same for any warband. They're a nice solid warband, they've got a nice solid deck. It gives you access to a few new mechanics around raising your Skaven backup, so it introduces you to a few more rules around that. But they're just a nice solid warband. Number 4 on our list is a death warband. It's the Headsman's Curse. Yeah,
these have a couple of interesting mechanics, but it's fairly self-explanatory, and they've got one big guy who hits really hard, which I think for beginners is quite an easy way to learn to play the games like this. This is the guy I want to do most of my stuff with.
Yeah, he's a bit molligy, but it's nice to have that one fighter in your warband that's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting, kill lots of people. It's always very rewarding.
Yeah, and they can score quite a lot of glory. Again, not a warband I've played a huge amount, but I have enjoyed them when I have played them. Finally, reborn in the new starter set, which I believe is still available. Now, we were tempted to put in the Sepulchral Guard, but the objectives that they come with in that box are not great, and then you have to be careful of the ward, and the mechanics are a little bit different. So they're not too bad, but Fast Riders are by far the easiest of the 2 in that box. They literally just shoot stuff and stab stuff.
Yeah, run forward.
And you've only got 3 fighters. Very easy to know what to do. And they inspire pretty easily now. You've basically got to make one of each type of attacks.
Yeah.
It really teaches you how to think about your card play, which upgrades you want to put on which fighters to best suit their abilities.
So those are our 5 starter choices. It's interesting that 3 of those are old warbands that got rejuvenated, which probably tells us a little bit about how complex GW's warband design is becoming.
I think that's hit the nail on the head, that each of the new warbands has quite complicated mechanics around it, whereas those, they've only kind of touched them up a little bit, which I know you can get in trouble for. They haven't done anything too horrible with them, so they're still fairly simple to play. And of course, because they've just come out in this new box, they're also fairly easy to get. So for the rest of the warbands in this video, there's 2 criteria why they didn't make it into the top 5, I suppose. But it's not a 16 warbands to start with. The first one is that the rotation schedule for GW is quite punishing, and these things come in and out of the shops quite quickly, so they can be tricky to get. Especially the longer ago they were made, the harder they are to get. And the other thing is that GW now love an errata.
They do love an errata.
So one could be cynical and say, rather than bother to play test them properly and balance them out of the box, They just let us do it. So that means they get errata, which means they then, even if they are simple to play, if you're playing around straight out of the box, you're playing with the wrong rules, you've got to go and find the rules, and you've got to hope that your opponent that you're playing with knows the rules, and it gets, so it's not great for a starter experience.
So we have got 11 warbands here. They're ones that we think are still fairly straightforward to play, but as Robin said, they've maybe had tweaks that you need to look up online, which isn't great for a starter player.
Number 1 actually hasn't had a tweak.
No, it hasn't.
It has rotated out. The season it's from is rotated out, but I think you could still get them online. And that is Drom's Gorchos, or the Gorchosen of Drom.
Yep, they're a nice straightforward warband. There's 3 fighters. They're all hard as nails, and they hit like trucks. And for a starter player, you want some big, nasty, bad guys to go out there and smash people's faces in, and these guys do that nicely. The next one on our list is a twofer.
Yes, available in the same starter box was the Gnarl Spirit Pack and the Sons of Velmorn.
Yeah.
They came out in the Gnarlwood box, I believe.
They did. They came out in the Gnarlwood box. They are now both like hen's teeth, rocking horse poop. They are very hard to get hold of. They've had some minor changes. Nothing too groundbreaking, but there are some tweaks in there, and they are quite hard to get hold of.
And also the Gnarl Spirit Pack are really good. They're much stronger
really
than Sons of Velmorn, even with the changes, and so people really like them for competitive play. Next up is the Crimson Court, which again, Peter's played a lot more than me.
Yeah, they go way back to, I think, Beastgrave, or it might have been Chasm time, but quite a while ago now.
The Corona times.
They were, yeah, the Corona times. They're a nice solid warband, 4 fighters, all pretty tough, all do a nice amount of damage. They have the little hunger mechanic, the little blood craze mechanic.
Yeah.
There's a nice little mechanic going on in there to inspire them that can help you gain that kind of idea of how the token collection or elimination sort of works, but they can also be very hard to get hold of because they have rotated out a while ago.
And also, unusually for an early warband, their Rivals deck is really solid on its own, without any extra cards for Nemesis. They make good decks with lots of things as well. They're very good utility warband. They can do all sorts of different things depending on how you want to play them. Next up is Dreeper's Wraith Creepers, possibly, although easy to play, my least favourite warband.
Yeah, Dreeper's Wraith Creepers came out at a slightly weird time, but they came out in the first starter set back before we kind of needed a starter set for Underworlds, and they were incredibly overpowered. They have been slightly errated since, but mostly they're in this because they're almost impossible to get hold of, but they've got a nice solid deck and a nice solid set of stats behind them.
So next up is one of my favourite utility warbands, and that is Headcracker's Mad Mob.
Another solid choice that have a lot of good cards, a lot of good mechanics, are fairly straightforward to play. Yeah,
like the Crimson Court, they've got a wizard, so you get to practice your magic. They have their little primacy mechanic, which is unique to them now, but it's good way of scoring some easy glory, and they go very well with any aggro Nemesis deck or Rivals deck. They pair up really nicely. So Headcrackers, if you can get them, are really good. The models are lovely too. Yeah, and they're on our list because they're very hard to get, but I don't think have had any errata, so there's no extra rules changes to remember. One warband that has had an errata, and that is Morgox. They're our next choice, which actually in my award for least favourite models of Underworlds. See, for me, I love those models. Yeah, so you're wrong. Yeah, well, there we go. 3 fighters, all tough as nails, all hit like trains. They have had a small errata to how they work, just to make them a little less overpowered, but their deck again is very solid, but they were quite an old warband, so they're hard to get hold of now. Our next choice is pretty much the anti-Morgox. It is. It's the Arenai. Fast and incredibly fragile. Yeah, they are a very aggro warband, like a lot of the ones on this list, because aggro is much easier to get your head around for a starter player. They've had a very small errata change, which is why they're on this list and not the other one. But they're small but significant. Yeah, it's very significant. It has made them significantly better, and they have won. They did win one of our championship games that we did. But they are a little bit tougher to get your head around because they do fold up in a stiff breeze, so you do have to be a little bit more careful with how you play them. I should say when I said championship there, I meant competitions. Yes, not the championship meta, Nemesis meta. And they're also really fun because you play those and you just roll dice. Dice. And that, to be honest, when you're first getting into the game, rolling the dice is the best bit. Can't really have an Underworlds list without at least one Stormcast. Yeah. We already have one, so we're going to have 2. And that is the Truth Seekers, probably the least Stormcasty warband of all of them. Yes, they used to all have that same format of 3 fighters, all pretty much had the same kind of weapons and all did the same kind of thing, whereas the Truth Seekers had a little bit of everything. Yeah, they've got some archers, they've got an eagle, they've got a hood.
We've got a bloke with a big hammer.
Yeah, so that, I actually really like the models. They're very easy to play, but they're quite easy to neutralise, so they're not that strong. They will teach you a lot about how the game works, which is quite nice, so they're quite a good place to start.
They've got some good defence on them, and they've got some decent wounds, so they can take a little bit of a pounding and not fold up, so that you can be forgiven for some bad choices.
They haven't had an errata or anything either, so you can play them straight out of the box if you can find one. We will have to go on a wild hunt to find the last ones. These are back from the Beastgrave days, and they are some of my favourite models, and they're a really dynamic, really fun warband, and that is the Wild Hunt.
The Banoffee trackers, they are proper hard to get hold of now, but they haven't had any erratas at all. But they do have a fairly bad Rivals deck to go with.
Fairly bad is an understatement. Yeah. It's awful. But pick it with the right Nemesis deck and it's a lot better. And again, it's one of those warbands that basically you want to keep charging. They inspire by charging. Yeah. So they're nice and easy to pick up. There's no subtleties with them. And it's just a case of then learning how to play the cards with them. So I think if you can find a set and then you can put in some reps with the Wild Hunt, you can actually get some pretty good results. Can't you, Neil?
Neil, yeah. Yes. I mean, you might want to toot the horn every now and then, but other than that, it's always the ABCs, always be charging.
Always be charging.
There you go. There are 16 different warbands that we would suggest for new players. You might have noticed a bit of a pattern there. Lots of aggro, lots of hard hitting, lots of big fighters, because generally new players like all that kind of thing, rolling lots of dice and smashing people's faces in.
Absolutely, and it's just an easy way to get to learn all of the more core mechanics of the game.
We've left off a lot of warbands like Sepulchral Guard and such because holding on to objectives is a slightly more advanced play style where you've got to get used to just not attacking and running up and standing next to your opponent, which can feel very counterintuitive. Yeah. So we haven't put any of those on this list for that reason. So
there you go. I hope you found that useful. Do you disagree with us? Let us know if you think another particular warband is really easy to play. Warbands like Ephelim are very strong, but I don't think they're that easy to play.
Do leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think about the warbands we picked, or as Robin says, any you feel should be in this list and your reasons why. And don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that bell.
And if you do want to continue the argument in real life, then do consider supporting us on Patreon, and we will argue with you all day long on our Discord.
Yeah, so we'll see you soon, maybe in the underworlds.